Hello and welcome to Being Well. I'm Forrest Hanson. If you're new to the show, thanks for joining us today. And if you've listened before, welcome back. I am here again for the second time in just a couple of weeks with my wonderful partner, associate therapist, Elizabeth Ferreira. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling fiery.
You feeling fiery?
I'm feeling
Matching the hair?
energized. You know, you can't help but kind of start to feel the energy or the force, the primal force of rage as you're like talking about it. You know,
As you're talking about
it starts
rage?
to embody you, and I like it.
So this is what I have been calling tentatively Get Mad, the episode.
Love
and
it.
and it's an episode that we've wanted to record for a long time. We've talked about it a lot with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have some really great takes on anger, particularly related to the clinical population of people that you tend to work with,
Mm-hmm.
people who have developmental trauma, complex PTSD, that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to start by asking you, why do you think that this is such an important topic for people?
Well, prepare everyone. I have hot takes. I think the energy of anger, and I want to kind of label it that, not just the meaning that we apply to that word, but the actual physical sensations that accompany anger. Those are really important forces. And when we're looking at anger through a trauma-informed lens, it's not really a secondary emotion, like more psychoanalytic or kind of pop psych would say. It's actually a primary emotion. And it's something that is primary because you need to have healthy protest in order to have boundaries, in order to learn what your wants and needs are, in order to be able to protect your more vulnerable parts from other folks, to be able to advocate for yourself. It's really that sensation or that energy that helps drive those external impulses out in the world.
Yeah, so you just said something there about anger being a secondary emotion, or that's a phrase that people use a lot. If you're not familiar with that, the idea that anger is a kind of protective emotion that's covering over softer, more vulnerable emotions like sadness, fear, shame, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because people are essentially more comfortable expressing anger, or it kind of feels better to get fired up about something than it does to be soft and vulnerable about it, we tend to gravitate toward that. And so anger can become a kind of psychological defense. It's something that we move to rather than experiencing those more vulnerable emotions. That could be true for some people, but inside of your practice, you've seen something consistently kind of different. You've seen people push away their anger or be very uncomfortable with it due to their experiences. Is that like a fair encapsulation?
Yeah. And I would say, first hot take here might make people angry. Ooh, is that what you just described, I think is mostly true for most folks who identify as being cis white men
Mm-hmm.
in
Sure.
our greater cultural society.
Anger as a defense. Yeah, totally.
Yes. But I think if you are a marginalized person, if you are a queer person, if you are a woman, your anger is not a secondary emotion. You're angry often for really good reason. And most of the time, you're not sad, you're mad.
Sure. Yeah. Anybody can be angry for understandable reasons or as a defense. But the question is, what do you tend to go to as a person? I think is sort of what you're highlighting here. And yeah, if you are socialized, as most men are in the United States, at least, I can't speak for other countries, but in terms of what I know, if you are socialized to be strong and aggressive and assertive and, boys don't cry, all of those kinds of experiences, you are not going to gravitate towards sadness as a defense. You're not going to gravitate toward like frailty as a defense. What are you going to gravitate toward? You're going to gravitate toward what you've been taught, which is get pissed at somebody else, right? On the other hand, if you've been taught that anybody who expresses anger is a bitch, you're probably not going to gravitate toward anger as a defense. You're going to gravitate toward these other emotions that we've labeled as being more socially appropriate. So yeah, I totally agree with you. If we think just about anger as secondary emotion, I think it's far more relevant for men on average than for women.
Yeah.
Understanding that populations are diverse, this could vary person to person. So in terms of the people who you work with, who are that more, had painful experiences growing up, or are trying to unravel stuff in adulthood, is that what you typically see? You typically see more a kind of discomfort with their own anger or aggression?
I notice when people who have developmental trauma start to feel angry, there is often a part of them that feels terrified embracing that anger. There is almost a trauma response to feeling your own righteous rage, to feeling your own healthy protest. And if we think about developmental trauma, that makes sense, because as a child, when you're totally dependent on your primary caregivers for survival, like you just have to kind of make it work. It's actually dangerous for you to be rageful or angry at your parents, especially if you learn at a young age. It will just lead to them exploding because they've never learned how to actually regulate or be with their anger.
And in general, when that person hears a framing of anger that's like, anger is a secondary emotion, feel your vulnerable feelings, or if they get that from a therapist, what do you feel the consequences of that are?
Huge consequences. And I can speak from my own experience, like when I first started doing my own trauma work as the client, I was just constantly feeling this surge of rage that would just fill up my body. And at first it would come out as crying because that's the only way my rage could ever come out when I was younger.
Yeah, that's what was permitted.
Yeah, I could cry, but I couldn't scream. I could cry, but I couldn't be angry. And whenever I would start to dare to kind of reveal I'm angry, I was always told no by like the person holding space for me. Or I was told, to look deeper, kind of underneath it, "Oh, well, really sad, or there must be like a wounded part and all this." And I tried it. I was like, "Okay, I'll do what you tell me to do. Okay, I'll believe you that this isn't anger." And I just found that there was no end to the crying. There was no, like, I could churn and churn and churn in sadness, but the thing that was happening was I was being misattuned to in that moment. That I wasn't actually sad. I was angry, and I wasn't having that reparative developmental experience of having someone sit with me in my anger and help me organize it and help me learn how to be with it. I was constantly being told, "No, don't feel that. Be sad instead." What the fuck?
there is something in it that feels so developmental to me. If you think literally about being with a young kid, 3, 4, 5 years old, maybe not an infant, but a young kid, somebody who can kind of start to understand what's going on in terms of their feelings. All right, the kid gets mad, the kid gets sad, the kid gets frustrated. What happens? Well, the kid cries, the kid screams. It's going to vary kid to kid. But let's say that they're more expressive about frustration or irritation, or like, oh, I didn't get this thing that I wanted, whatever it was. If they start screaming, if they start crying, how are they responded to? Well, in a healthy adult environment, hopefully, their anger is met with a lot of, oh, tell me how you feel. What's going on here? Why are you feeling this way? There's a curiosity about it first.
Yep.
There's not, oh, you're really actually sad. There's a curiosity about the frustration. The frustration is met.
There's a being with.
There's a being with before we try to move through it.
Yep.
And then normally what happens is maybe something else shows up. Maybe there is some sadness. Maybe there is some feeling of like loss. Oh, I didn't want the caregiver to move away from me. I felt like there was a lot of space between me and mom, or a lot of space between me and dad. That made me feel uncomfortable. But that's something that's revealed. That's generally not something that you start with. But a lot of people had the experience where not only was their anger not met, the caregiver never really showed up at all. They just screamed themselves out, or they were immediately hushed. They were immediately told, you can't do that. So there's no experience of that anger being met in kind of a healthy way. What do you think the consequences of that are behaviorally as these people become adults? Like, what kind of behaviors tend to show up?
Well, I think the main consequence is that your anger becomes a fragmented part. So if we think about, and now to be fair, I'm not a scientist, so I have no idea what I'm actually talking about here.
Well, you're a therapist,
I just
so
want to be
you're
really
practical.
clear about what I'm about to say. I have no idea how the brain actually works because I can't remember it. But what I will say that helps me kind of conceptualize this
practically,
is that what I've been told is that more right brain processes are where we tend to develop first as children. That's the feely part of the brain. That is the more like, I'm having a sensation. Oh my God, what is this sensation? Right? And the left side of the brain is how we organize the experience. It's sort of where we go, oh, that's anger, and I'm angry for good reason, and this is what's happening here. when we don't have a parent who is guiding us with how to organize these sensations and experiences we're having in our right brain, we never learn how to organize the experience in an integrated way, meaning we're taught to suppress and bypass rather than learning how to be with the energy we're experiencing and then do something about it, to use it as information. What tends to happen with folks like this is that you have the feeling, it's intense, and you bottle it. And rage, anger, it's an energy. It's connected to your fight response. Like there is a somatic experience attached to that. And that energy does not just disappear. It builds or it comes out in sideways ways like passive aggression, pettiness, things like that.
Yeah, I think that what you see a lot, and I can't speak to the left brain, right brain of it all,
I can't really either.
but I can say that the brain definitely develops in stages in kids.
Yeah.
And those more kind of prefrontal capabilities, that sort of logic, reason, why did I feel that way?
Yeah.
That tends to develop a lot later.
Yeah.
And so you need to be met in the feeling as a kid before you can go to any of that kind of processing. And that processing capability as a whole definitely comes on a little later in life for sure. I think the consequences that you named are totally right on. This idea that we did an episode recently on psychoanalysis, and I've got some mixed feelings about psychoanalysis broadly as a thing, but I think that there were a couple of things that it got really right, and one of those is repression.
Yeah.
So part of what we're kind of talking about here is, okay, if you can't express your anger in healthy ways, what happens? And I think that what happens is you get petty, you get passive aggressive, you get resentful.
Yep.
I think resentment is a huge one. Resentment's been a huge one for me. We've really worked on that inside of our relationship, finding ways for me to express needs or express frustration in kind of healthy ways. Healthy protest is a phrase we use a lot. And if you can't let that fizz out of the bottle, I think what you find is people eventually kind of explode. They have a moment where the lid pops and it all comes out of them, often in less functional or less healthy ways. Then what happens? They get a ton of negative feedback from the people around them and they get taught, okay, never doing that one again.
And
so
the cycle continues.
Yeah, so
and
it becomes
continues.
this kind of like self-perpetuating thing.
Yeah. And with that, your only option is either to endure and submit, or you explode and catastrophe happens.
So as somebody who has to some extent experienced this
Yeah.
and to some extent walked through this process, what have you bumped into that's been either helpful for you, or what does this really like looked like in practice?
The first step was, I think, getting really honest that I needed to advocate for my own anger, because I kept, and I don't know if it's just because like I'm a woman and there's like a story there, but I recognized that I needed to allow myself to be angry. And I needed to speak up and say, no, I'm not sad right now. I am fucking pissed. And what I found was it took, I was in a deep process for about a year of just going, I'm no longer going to repress this, and I'm no longer going to avoid it. I am going to be with it. And it was messy. Sometimes it spilled out of the bottle, and I needed to have that experience to also learn how to kind of regulate it and go, okay. And what I did was I started to view my rage and anger as a part. And whenever I would feel consumed by it, because I would get very blended with it. And it's a very weird, like non-ordinary state of reality when you're blended with rage, because there's a part of you that is like, why can't I just not think about this? Why can't I just stop feeling this? And then another part that is just spinning, just, kind of like rage in Inside Out. That's just like the whole time. And so I just would write every single thing in a Google Doc that my rage was saying, that my rage was fantasizing about. And I would go back when I wasn't so blended with it and I would read it back to myself. to go, what is this part actually trying to tell me? And what I learned was that it wasn't that I was just rageful and pissed for no reason. I was rageful and pissed because there were things happening that I didn't like. There was stuff happening that I no longer wanted to endure. There was stuff happening that I was like, wait a minute, I've never liked this, and I'm sick and tired of pretending that I do. And it was, in a way, sort of the messenger. It was a part of me that was showing up going, Elizabeth, wake up. You do not deserve to be treated this way. And you do not like how you are being treated. And you do not like this. And it's okay for you to not like it. So stand the F up and state your freaking boundaries, girl. State your freaking needs.
Yeah, I do think that this is a Trojan horse wants and needs conversation.
I think
The
that's
anger piece and it, or they're kind of connected to each other in an interesting way.
well, I think everything comes down to wants and needs.
I kind of feel the same way.
You know, like I think everything comes down to wants and needs.
Particularly in relationships.
Yeah.
But not even romantic ones, just in human relationships. Yeah. How do we balance these different competing desires that we have, or these different pressures that we put on each other as people? Or I want this thing, but I also want that thing. How do I square that circle a little bit? Totally.
But really what it is, it's about boundaries. When you have more complex trauma, boundaries are very, very challenging because many of us weren't allowed to have any.
Sure.
And so anger isn't just a fuel for external boundaries, like I'm not going to be around this person anymore, or I'm not going to tolerate this behavior. It's also about internal boundaries, psychic boundaries. Being able to have like a wall up so that if somebody is just being frankly reckless with their wants and needs and like demanding, you have space to go, wait a minute. I don't have to do that. I don't have to just, like a trained puppy go, yes. I get to say, no, I'm not doing it.
And I think the big movement here is the movement from submit or explode.
Yeah.
As like your two choices. These are the only two options I have. I have either totally submit, belly up, or I have, it's like two dogs fighting in the park.
Yep.
They're either going at it or one of them's belly up. Like that's kind of what they got. But okay, we've got a little bit more evolutionary machinery going on here. We can live in a little bit more of a middle space where we can be in that space of what we call healthy protest. Other people call it healthy protest too, where you've established, hey, that wasn't what I wanted.
Yep.
Hey, that's not what I communicated. Hey, that wasn't our agreement. And you're doing it from this very adult place. What do you find helps people wander in that direction?
You got to be willing to get really, really messy.
Like, I do think there's definitely a messy phase.
You have to be willing to mess up, get messy, explode, be so triggered that you think your entire life's going to fall apart and survive it. And learn to go, oh, okay, that's as bad as it's probably going to get. And I'm still here. Okay, I still got it. And there's something about allowing yourself to be in relationship with that messy anger part that then helps you actually get valuable information later. Meaning that first, most people in my experience become hijacked by a rage part. Like the injustice builds up, the dysfunctional patterns build up to a point, or your submit response is so sick and tired of doing it that you then have the exploding moment. You erupt, you explode. And that's kind of a good thing because your body is saying, I am no longer going to participate in this pattern anymore. Your body is screaming at you at that point. We have our own wants and needs. We are our own individual person. We are not here on this planet to just be a submissive, subservient person to other people that just says, okay, yeah, that's fine all the time. And so it's going to get messy and you're going to feel like, what do I listen to? But the more you are being with that part, the more you're able to have a degree of separation from it. Look, I still have a part of me that when shit triggers me in a certain way, it's like a raging animal. It is like, and I am thinking of like the worst things to say. I'm imagining doing terrible, terrible, terrible things, but I'm able now to have enough space for that to be happening while also staying the wise adult and going, okay, well, since the Tasmanian devil is losing his shit, I know that I need to step in as the adult and go, what is happening here that my body doesn't like? What is going on here that maybe I need to like get some clarity on? And maybe is this a moment or an opportunity that in a wise adult place, I go, hey, if you keep doing this, I am going to do this. And that's a way of stating a boundary that, like, if you keep doing this thing that is activating my Tasmanian devil, then I'm going to step into my own self-care, what I need to do so that I don't get fully hijacked by that part because it's pretty pissed right now.
Yeah, and I think that many people experience that kind of boundary setting as a form of punishment.
Yeah.
Essentially, there's a punitive quality to it. And you want to be thoughtful about what you're doing these things from, or what place you're operating from. But a boundary is just a boundary. It's morally neutral. Like, boundaries themselves are neither good nor bad in their nature. It's about their content. And if it's sort of framed and communicated from a place of, look, when you act this way toward me, or when you do these things, it makes me not want to be around you. And so this isn't like a threat. It's just me saying, this is how I feel. And if I feel this way in relationship to you frequently, I'm not going to opt into relationship with you as often. It's just kind of obvious in a sort of way. And there's this removal of a presumption that the other person just has access to you in this kind of ambiguous, broad, eternal way. You see this a lot in family systems as a major issue, where there's just a presumption of access. And it's like, no, you gotta hold up your end of the bargain here, or yeah, I'm gonna feel a certain kind of way about it. Totally.
Well, what you're modeling is, frankly, the system you come from, which is a healthy family dynamic.
Sure, yeah.
But in disorganized and dysfunctional family systems, it can be dangerous asserting those boundaries.
Oh, for sure. Totally.
Because it's not just expected that someone has access to you, it's demanded. It's like through this authoritative place. So I just want to name that, for example, myself. The reason why I still struggle to this day with boundaries is because it was actually dangerous in my family system to have them.
Sure. Yeah, you were punished.
I was radically punished for them.
Yeah.
And so now I still have a responsive, like,
yeah,
whenever I feel I need a boundary. But on top of that, because I wasn't allowed to have any, and the times that I did, it was like erupted into such chaos, I still feel like me asserting my boundaries is mean. It still feels like I'm being mean because I can't just submit. I can't just go, okay, yeah, sure. That there is a learned system inside of me that goes, wow, you're really being a bitch right now.
Sure.
Or you're going to really hurt this person's feelings. Or you're going to make it way worse for you if you do this. So you better just submit. And I have to fight through that every single time that my body is saying, we don't like it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what we're doing here that feels really useful is tying that submit response to the anger response.
Yep.
We're turning them essentially into one system that kind of moves together, which may or may not be novel for people. If you're in a relationship or in a friendship or in a whatever with somebody who has this as a, for lack of a better word, as a complex that they're dealing with, as a system of interconnected issues, what I've really found for me that's been useful is clarifying that understanding what you actually want is helpful for me. It's a huge benefit for me to actually know where you're at, for you to be honest with me. This doesn't mean I want you to explode at.
Yeah.
But honest communication about what you want, what you need. Do I need space today? Here's how I'm feeling. That's an act of service.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a boundary in this case isn't a punishment of me. It's like a gift that you're kind of giving to me because I want to be a dog with a job.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true for guys in general. I feel it's often true for guys, but certainly for me, I want to be like, okay, what's the task so I can do the task really well?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way for me to know that is if you're able to communicate it and kind of speak it into existence.
Yeah, and I mean what we're really talking about is like you are modeling and describing very healthy ways of being in relationship and
Mm.
advocating and knowing your wants and needs and being able to do all that. When you have complex trauma, that is a very long road.
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
it is not
totally.
like many people don't have access to that. They
Yeah.
literally can't.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a partner who has CPTSD and you ask them, "Hey, what do you want? What do you need?" I don't
Well,
know.
well, let's talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
because I think that is so tied to frustration and resentment and irritation. Because like you can't figure out what you want, I
Mhm.
can't figure out what you want. Now we're just both irritated together because neither of
Mhm.
us is really. What's helped you with that, if anything?
I mean,
Still an ongoing process, obviously, but like.
5 plus years of therapy, like, like it's tricky because with complex trauma, it's complex.
Yeah.
There are all these different layers, like when you move into a relationship, you have to start learning how to open up your attachment system, which is terrifying. You have to learn how to have enough space inside of yourself for your partner on top of all the chaotic, fragmented parts of yourself.
Mm.
You have to learn how to effectively communicate. You have to recognize your dysfunctional patterns and learn a healthier way of being with them. And all of that is needed and a part of the very complex process of untangling yourself from all of this stuff. I think it's very difficult for people who haven't had this experience to understand what it is like to turn the inner eye and have nothing.
Mm.
To have literally nothing because you have learned to abandon yourself on such a destructive degree that when your partner asks you, "What do you need?" you go in and you try to look, and it is a blank slate because you don't know. You have no clue. You couldn't pull it up even if you tried. And so often, what you do is through the process of going through your trauma layer by layer, you start to meet parts of yourself similar to this like rage part that we're talking about that starts to give you clues, that starts to give you important information. It's sort of like a quest, like this major fantastical quest that you go on. And you're like, well, the through line is I'm going to be a healthy person. And then you have all these side quests you have to do. And you're like, shit, like, I don't want to like find all these herbs and make this potion for this like lady in this hut.
I don't
And
want to
then
kill the 10 wolves for their pelts
like,
and
come
bring them
on.
back.
And then you do it and you realize, oh shit, I'm an introvert. I
Mm.
actually need alone time. Or you go, oh dang, yeah, I really don't like when people talk to me that way. Or you learn, oh, I've been continuing to submit in my relationship and I have a huge complex about standing up for myself. And in order for this relationship to work, I need to be able to do that.
When you are frustrated by something these days
Mm-hmm.
and you express it to another person and you feel like it's not met super skillfully,
Mm-hmm.
what helps you not just blow up?
Well, one, I rarely express from the part of frustration.
Yes.
I do enough internal work and I sit with myself long enough so that I can hold that part. And then I kind of think about it as I'm moving into a state of self advocacy where I'm sharing information and I'm kind of testing if the other person can show up in the way that I need.
Yeah. Are
And
they
if
going to be receptive?
and if they can't, then I'm like, fine, I will just go and do this by myself.
Yeah.
Fine, I will just go and talk to my therapist.
I think that's a good part one on it for sure. And For people who are, because so far we've mostly been talking about that kind of like submit versus explosion piece
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another group of people who would be really benefited by accessing some of this energy. And to me, that's more that group of people who maybe it's more of like a resentment,
Mm-hmm.
sort of pissiness,
Mm-hmm.
kind of repression feeling with the anger, or it's maybe those people who look inside and they're like, I'm not even that angry because I'm almost alexithymic. Like I
Yeah.
can't, I've cut that off so much that I'm not even really feeling it at all. Are those populations that you've worked with much inside of your practice? Are those common issues that come in the door?
Yeah. You're in a way talking about structural dissociation.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you have CPTSD, guess what? You have it. You have it. CPTSD is a dissociative disorder. So, how I think about it is that it was so dangerous at one point for you to express that side of you that whenever you feel that energy that we equate to that part, could be anger, could be healthy protest, could even be flight, right? That your body has learned to dissociate from it. This is also what's happening when you say, at times when in the past you've been like, well, Elizabeth, what do you want? I dissociate
Yeah.
because it's too dangerous to go look in that place.
Mm.
So, with that type of presentation, people who just get really blown out when they start to even kind of orbit the anger piece is that you have to honor the wisdom and the coherence of that strategy. That it was once so dangerous that the system learned to totally abandon ship and move not just out into a submit response, but a totally dissociated, I'm not here right now response. Um, So, part of it in trauma work is helping the person stay with it longer and longer and longer. Learning to observe it instead of dissociate from it. Learning that it's actually okay and it's safe and nobody's going to attack you, shame you, or blame you when you come into contact with that.
Mm.
And what happens is there's a really cool, I mean, I think it's cool, but there is a very powerful force that starts to come into the healing work. I don't even like that word anymore, but I don't know what else to say. The journey, when you can actually be with your anger,
Mm.
because then the process starts to churn over faster and faster and faster. Things start to improve. The areas you have been like really trying to like get some footing in, all of a sudden you're there, you got it. So anger is in a way a really powerful force for change.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally true. Something I've shared on the podcast a lot is just talking to therapists in general. Often depression is extremely, extremely difficult to work with.
Yeah.
And you would rather somebody be in the room who's really pissed than somebody who is really depressed, because at least you've got some gas in the tank, right? You've got a kind of motive energy that's associated with it. It's one of the reasons that depression is so treatment resistant,
Yep.
because you've kind of been robbed of that energy.
And I think there's sort of like a little journey that can happen where, and it just depends on where you're at. And I've experienced both sides where whenever I would actually start to feel angry, I would immediately dissociate. It would be um and the more work I did and the more therapy that I did and the more kind of understanding of what was going on, then I got to the stage where I wasn't dissociating, but I was totally hijacked by the part to where
Mm-hmm.
stuff was happening and I could not stop it. It was a total feeling of like, wow, I am out of control and I don't want to be doing this, but yet I can't stop it from happening. Well, shit. And then you kind of get to this stage of being in more control of it, where you are no longer hijacked by the part, but you're able to be with it, kind of hold it over here and be in more agency with what you're going to do as you're having this internal experience.
That place of feeling something without being forced to make a choice from that feeling is like a pretty good bumper sticker for being, an adult part, self
Mhm.
energy, whatever you want to call it, being a functional adult essentially.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to develop.
Yep.
It's particularly hard to develop if you're trying to develop it in adulthood and you're not surrounded by a perfect environment. Most people are not going to be surrounded by a perfect environment. Their partner's not going to totally get it. Their family's definitely not going to get it. Maybe they got some friends who are helping them out, but it's tough. Do you think that there were particular things that helped you or helped the people that you've worked with in that kind of feel it but not act from it equation?
I think it comes from the experience of having another person be with you in it. And this is why I get so pissed when people are like, anger's just a secondary emotion. Really, what you're feeling is sadness. No, because you're skipping the
The
moment
big
of
step, yeah.
intercourse that is needed with this feeling. You're missing the opportunity to really be in it together
Hmm.
because that's how you learn how to be with it. Someone else has to provide you the containment. Someone else needs to be the safe container for you to explode. And you need to be able to trust that they're not going to be overwhelmed by that. You need to be able to trust that they have big enough hands to hold this bomb that might go off.
Hmm.
And they, by proxy, act as that wise adult for you. They help you organize it, they help you co regulate the experience. And one of the things that I really believe about trauma work is that there are some feelings that are too big for one nervous system to hold.
Hmm.
That this is the piece that you cannot heal by yourself. You cannot undo the impact of trauma alone. You need community because some experiences have such an intensity and a charge and an overwhelming experience that there's a wisdom in your body not letting you do it by yourself because you might actually be consumed by it.
Hmm.
You might just get caught in a loop and a spiral. You need the other person to kind of keep you grounded, to be like, hey, I'm still here with you. You can get as pissed as you want.
Yeah.
If you need directed at me, do it.
Yeah.
Like, I am willing to sit in this chaos with you.
And to some extent, this is what we have therapists for
Yes.
sure. Not everybody's gonna have this in their friendship group or family system or whatever it might be. That being said, I think you can get a good chunk of it from a pretty good friend.
Yeah.
They don't have to be the world's best friend. They don't have to have gone to graduate school. They don't need to be in training to be a social worker or something like that. Pretty darn good friend. You can get a lot of this from, particularly, again, if you are willing to communicate it clearly.
Yep.
And that's where we kind of loop our way back to the wants and needs and clear communication side of it. And um, a piece of this that I think is complicated but is true is that if you're getting mad about stuff that you never actually coherently asked
Mm-hmm.
for, man, it's just you're in dangerous ground. You're in a tricky environment, and a lot of people are very frustrated about not receiving the things that they never asked for.
So here's the thing. Often in therapy, people talk about mindfulness and compassion. But I often find that that is a way to bypass the being with,
Hmm.
the sitting in the really uncomfortable moment. And people don't like sitting with anger, even when it's not really directed at them. It is a very intense and overwhelming energy to hold. And so we have all of these patterns societally to avoid it, to
Hmm.
bypass it, to be like, well, you're not really allowed to be angry because you didn't X, Y, and Z. And you're not really allowed to explode because you didn't do this.
Sure, sure. So I think that you're allowed to feel however you feel. Is that maybe the kind of finer point that I would put on it. And you're not just allowed to. You should feel however you feel. Well, I love people feeling how they feel and using it as a tool, kind of as we've been talking about, to get more clarity about what really matters to you.
Yeah.
The feeling's a divining rod. It like points you in the
Yeah.
direction of what matters to you and what you feel strongly about. And also, maybe this is coming from my own experience, there are a lot of people who are not traumatized persons who still really struggle to express themselves and
Yeah.
still really struggle to figure out what matters to them and so on, and can absolutely still have a very hard time with the feeling resentful or frustrated about things that they didn't actually make a coherent communication about. I just think it's about understanding why stuff happens and getting a
Yeah.
more of a clarity inside of yourself. Oh, when I do X, they do Y. When I don't say this, they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you start to kind of rebuild that in a very young way developmentally, because ideally we're learning these lessons when we're pretty young, and trying to kind of learn the more effective version of it is maybe a way to put it, kind of in adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
becomes a piece of that process where you start learning, oh, when I ask for this thing, I am more likely to get it.
Yeah.
Wow, how cool. And that becomes sort of a piece of that.
Totally. And we're actually like on the same page. I just
Mhm.
want to be clear about. And the nuance that I would offer is that it's not about um dismissing or being like, just be more compassionate with yourself. It's
Oh, yeah.
about giving grace.
Hmm.
It's about having enough space inside of yourself to have enough grace for when a person is a mess in front of you. And the number one thing that actually helps in those situations is not defensiveness. It's not trying to get analytical about it. It's being curious.
Hmm. Yeah.
Curiosity diffuses rage like that.
Yeah. Totally.
And not like pushy curiousness, not curiousness that's like masking as I'm really going to move you over here. No, like genuine, I have no agenda. I'm just asking about you, man.
I think you're totally right. And I also think that's on that list of things that people don't experience very often.
No.
You know,
And
genuine interest.
I think that's why we're so bad with anger
Hmm.
as a society. It's why I feel like I'm almost like here. I'm like, I'm leading the reform on anger. Like, we need to get more mad because we all have an intolerance for this shit and we need to wake up.
Yeah. And when we were talking about this the other day, we had a very funny moment where you were describing the way that an effective version of this can look inside of a relationship. And again, when I say relationship, I don't necessarily mean romantic. I just
Yeah.
mean like friendship, family, whatever. And to pantomime you pantomiming us, it was essentially a version of you going, wow, I'm just so pissed about this. I am so mad, and you made me so mad, and I don't like it. And you just paused for a second and you went, and then you've got a choice. The other person's got a choice. How do you respond to it? You can either respond with defensiveness and frustration and like, you're not allowed to talk to me that way. Or you can respond with, oh, wow, how about that?
Yep.
What made you feel mad, babe?
Yep.
And then you're like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah."
Yep.
And then I'm like, yeah, gotcha. Really mad, right? And you're like, yeah, no, 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 no. And then I'm like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Here's what I think I'm going to do about it. Does that sound good? And you go, wow, yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what else do you feel? And then maybe we're in the world of, oh, I felt bad because you did this thing and I didn't like it. And then we can move to the world of anger as a secondary emotion. But you're only allowed to move there if you actually meet the anger from the jump. Yeah, totally. And then all of a sudden, this different kind of feeling can enter the room because you are being the big enough container to kind of hold what's coming at you in different kinds of ways. And yeah, we can have a conversation about whether or not coming in with that much topspin is like the most maximally effective way to do it or whatever. But people get pissed. It's okay. It's life. You're not going to live a life without ever getting pissed. And in your relationship, people are going to get mad periodically. So you got to learn how to kind of deal with it.
So here's my second hot take. Okay. Are you ready for this one, Forrest?
I'm so ready. It's so hot.
Here we go. I think we all need to be way more responsible with our emotions as people. Emotions are a vibe. They're an energy. And nothing pisses me off more than someone who's ignorant to the energy that they bring into a space.
They don't know what they're bringing to the function.
People who are just
oh my God, you're so right.
Needy and demanding and who are like the pickle in the punch bowl. And they're just la la la, not knowing what they're doing. That
killing the vibe, man.
Pisses me off. Makes me mad. But why does it make me mad? because I happen to be a very hypervigilant person that feels the emotions of everybody because that's how I had to survive my family. So I feel everything maxed 100 all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So shit like that is the most grating thing for me because it also activates my parts that are like, what are you doing? You know, like, oh my God. Like, and I've had to learn to like go, oh, it's because this person was allowed to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they've never had to build hypervigilance. They've never had to attune to the greater, larger ecosystem because, wow, am I really pissed at someone because they had good enough parents?
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. Or am I mad at them for going through hard things on
There
the
you
other
go.
side of it? Like, that doesn't feel great.
Totally. But my whole point is that I think as individuals, we all need to learn how to take radical responsibility for how we feel ourselves. And so many people are reckless about their emotions in terms that they just fling them out at everybody. And there's a difference between having no even energetic responsibility where you're just like throwing it at your partner. You know, like, you know, I'm going to pantomime you, you know, the whole piece about, you know, like I could be like, oh my freaking God, like how many times do I have to pick up your effing tennis shoes out of the living room? You just scatter them everywhere after I spent the whole weekend cleaning the place and you're just not giving a shit about it. Like I could do that, or I could do two other options. I could go, Elizabeth, do the shoes really freaking matter? No. Is it literally going to take you 10 seconds to pick up his shoes and put them in the closet? And then are you not going to think about it? Yeah.
What hills are we dying on here? Yeah.
It's a freaking shoe, you know? And then the second thing is I might go, hey, babe, I'm going to need some witnessing here. I'm having the funniest experience. There's a part of me that is kind of hilariously really pissed about the shoe being on the floor.
I want to kill you about these shoes.
You know, and this is what this part is saying. I know it's ridiculous. I know it's kind of silly, but like, wow, like that's kind of what's going on for me.
And for me as a person, the level of practice that I need to meet you in like the second version and have it go well is way lower than the level of practice that I need to meet you with the first version to have it go well. Yeah.
So the second version is me taking real responsibility for the emotion, the energy that is in motion, and being able to kind of separate myself from
the
it
request
and go, oh my God, Forrest, look at it. Look at it. I can hold it. But isn't that funny? Yeah. And also, do you mind looking at it with me?
Do you mind moving the shoes?
Do you mind moving the shoes?
If you move the shoes a little bit.
Like, this is really about me. And, you know, I know it's dumb and I'm probably not going to think about it a week later from now, but this is what's happening now.
Huge yes to responsibility for the emotion. I think this is great. I love that you're bringing this in. And something that I've noticed when I work with people in a coaching context is that often there is this sort of assumption that actions need to flow from feelings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I have an emotion, I feel a way. Therefore, my flowchart of actions are all of the things that come out of that emotion.
Is it an action or is it behavior?
Yes. What's the distinguishing that you're doing between these two things? I'm curious.
I think they're two different things.
Okay. Well, these are, I would say behavior then.
Yeah.
Yeah. That these are probably more behaviors. These are the behaviors that I have access to.
Yeah.
Based on the emotion that I'm experiencing, the feeling that I'm having. And what you're really showing here is how you're separating out the emotional experience from the behaviors that you're moving into, that you're making a choice around, right?
Yep.
Because you've got this very, very strong feeling, but you've created this kind of different emotional flow chart or this different behavioral flow chart. That's a hard thing to do. We've talked a little bit about maybe how people can start doing versions of that. I don't know if there's anything that you've actually seen in your practice with people around helping get this kind of splitting these parts out.
Well, Forrest, I thought you'd never ask.
Okay.
This is why I asked the distinction, because I think an action is required, but an action is not the same as a behavior. An action is a movement. I think that emotions have a physical component. And when we feel them, if we just are in thought with them, we're not actually giving our body
cool.
the
Okay.
maximum opportunity to, again, have that, what I call that intercourse with the sensation. So as a somatic therapist, how I think about emotions as it's energy running through your body. The name that you put to that, the correlations and the meaning making, that's all your brain trying to figure out what the hell is this sensation that's happening. But if you reduce everything down, it's a sensation. And if you can connect to the sensation of your body, often you will feel an impulse, a physical action to do, which will help regulate that emotion. So, in my view, an emotion can be regulated. If it is the energy and motion through your body and it is just an emotional state, you can pivot, you can hold it, you can reduce it. If you are in a triggered state, you can't really regulate that. You're not going to really be able to pivot or reduce it. You just have, once the train takes off, you just got to ride it out.
Yeah.
So when it comes to emotions in this way, which you're bringing in, there almost always is a physicality you can do that will help keep you in that more wise adult place, in a place of, wow, I am having this feeling, but I don't need to do a behavior from this feeling. I'm having this feeling, but I don't really need to say anything to this
sometimes
person.
What helps you do that, what you're pointing to, is following the action.
Yes.
For me, the Forrest classic is I rub my hands together. I also shake my hands like this.
Yep.
You've seen me do this on the regular.
I clench my hips.
Your hips.
I cross my legs and I really clench my hips.
You bear down with it.
Yeah, like I'm a container. Like I'm like, oh,
crushing the coconut between your legs.
Yeah, you know, like I really engage the strongest muscles that I have, and I just like clench as hard as possible. But I also have a rage issue. Other times, right, I wiggle a lot. I move my spine a lot. I'll kind of tilt my head. I might do this a lot. You can even make sound, like a little bit of a humming. People who fidget or play, like this is all unconscious ways that our body is doing this. And so if you can get curious about it and go, ooh, I'm having a feeling. What might this feel? What movement matches this feeling? Like, and do it for a little bit. You're going to look silly, but I mean, at this point, I think it's like cool to be uncool. So just like do the weird thing.
And the consequences of it are probably lower than the consequences of you popping off. So,
yes.
Yeah, there you go. Right. You want to make a good choice about it. So yeah, I think that following the action can help essentially let some of the fizz out of the bottle if you feel like you're about to pop. Other side of the coin, person who has a difficult time accessing that feeling in the first place, hard time figuring out what they want, they're in that more dissociative lane. Are there things that you feel tend to help that kind of person?
If someone is truly in a dissociative state, you have to first get them back in their body. So that can look like tapping, getting just some type of awareness of sensation in the body, shaking. Often we need to build energy in the body to kind of get them back in there. So it's a process of feel your feet, feel your hands, feel the pressure of your sits bones in the seat. Can you push into it? Can you feel that sensation? So it's bringing the person back into contact with the physical sensations they can feel on their skin. And then you move more into interoception. Then you move more into what does the sensation that's flowing through your body feel like? Is it a tingling? Is it a coolness? Is it a tension somewhere? Do you want to throw up? Right? And you kind of walk them slowly through those kind of cues and prompts while monitoring that they are not just, yeah, I feel so much, like you kind of go, wait, like get back on earth.
Yeah, totally. Do you want to do 10 minutes of wants and needs at the end here?
Let's do it.
Okay, because we've gone off book. We've finished.
But this is
the book, but
this is your bread and butter for us. It's wants and needs. It's wants and needs.
It's my whole thing. So I think this kind of cool thing can happen for people. I've watched it happen a bit in the coaching world, and I would imagine that it's even more of a thing in the therapy world, but you tell me. where there is somebody who is in that more, well, I don't know, kind of place. And you go through a process of with them of developing a lot of trust in the relationship. And you do a lot of kind of tangential exploration, is sort of sometimes what happens. How did you feel in this kind of a situation? How did you feel in that kind of a situation? Oh, what is it that you don't like about your job? Why haven't those relationships worked out in the past? You're kind of exploring, you're collecting data. And then somewhere in there, you have a moment where, as the helping person, you kind of look at them and you say, well, it really feels like fill in the blank. It really feels like you just care about this thing. Or, oh, it feels like you like that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, okay, it feels like this is really important to you. Often there's a little bit of resistance. There's a little bit of like, well, what do you mean it's important to me? Or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is. But you eventually sort of get to a moment where they kind of quietly get to some kind of a want or some kind of a feeling, some kind of an expression. Um, I'm wondering what you've seen about how that process works. What helps people get there? What do you need to do ahead of time to kind of start contacting that material? I don't know if there's any relevancy in your own story with this, if this was something that you had problems with. Um, just like, how do you feel about what I've kind of laid out there?
Well, I just want to name that I'm interpreting all of this through a complex PTSD lens.
Yeah.
And want to get to the realm
And that's
of,
not the population that I work
yeah,
with.
to get to the realm of wants and needs typically takes years of therapy for folks like me because there is such a disconnect from it. Um, so it's a long road to get there, and it's often even still like very challenging because you need to be able to have discernment because what you're offering is as coaches or therapists we're ideally just being a mirror.
Yeah.
We are reflecting back what we are hearing, and then it's up to the client. It's up to the other person receiving that reflection. Is this true for me? Is this accurate for me? And people who have CPTSD and have been in a submit response might be too quick to just, okay, yeah, sure,
Hmm.
which is a form of submission. It's a form of fawning. And so you need to first develop that part that can have discernment.
And this is just not to, I want you to keep going, but this is just such a cool difference in populations of people. What I've seen typically is resistance to that. It's
Mm-hmm.
not submission to it. It's like, oh, that's not me. Or
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know. That's not quite right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also just a difference in protective strategies
Mm.
too. But what I'm talking about is like if you try to get to the wants and needs too soon, you will be met with resistance.
Yeah, for sure.
But after a prolonged course where trust has been built and there's a lot of um, safety within the therapeutic or coaching relationship, then when you make these reflections about wants and needs, often by that point, a person has that part of them that can discern,
Hmm.
that can go, well, like for myself, when, my therapist was all like, oh yeah, you're just really sad. And it's like, well, this doesn't feel like sadness. I know what sadness feels like. I'm feeling angry.
Mm.
And then, it's a moment. Is that resistance? No. It's in my experience, being able to advocate for yourself,
Yeah, totally. 100%.
being able to actually do the mechanical tools that are in the wants and needs
Yeah.
conversation. So, a lot of times with like complex trauma, we have to get back to these like fundamental skills to even get to the conversation that you're trying to have.
Totally.
So for me, it's very long, it's very drawn out. It's a process. It's sort of like the continual side quests that just keep happening because I agree with you that at the end of the day, most of this stuff is about wants and needs. How do you want to be? How do you want to change? How do you want to build your life from this moment on?
So the experience that I'm having right now is kind of like it's an echo of the conversation I had with Jacob Hom. years ago, where I'm sort of asking you, well, how do you peel an apple? And then Jacob essentially responded to me with being like, what is an apple?
Yeah.
And that's a little bit sort of what's happening here. Is I'm like, well, Elizabeth, how do you help people do that? And you're like, it's a really long process. And I'm like, okay, well, how do you help them? And you're like, well, it's a really long process. And so I really appreciate that, and how individual it is inside of all of this, and how we have a culture with this kind of content where we're really looking for like, what's the solution?
Yep.
And it's not always so simple. It's not always like, let me give you this 3-point plan for something. I am just out of a desire to like support the people who might be listening to this. If there were things or are things that you feel can help people start getting more comfortable with the idea that they do in fact have some kind of desire deep down inside of themselves, even just on that level of it. I don't know, like, what have you seen with that?
Okay, I'm going to do my best to answer your question, but I may not do it, and it may drive you nuts, and that's okay.
That's fine. And it won't drive me nuts. It'll create more cool stuff.
So I think that there is, you are kind of embodying this structure of self-help.
Yeah.
That is very solutions focused.
Totally.
That is very, there is an answer to be found, and you need to give me the right answer.
Or like, how can we help people do a thing?
Or like, how do we get you to the right answer for yourself, maybe? It's a very direct and penetrating and kind of forceful point of inquiry. And I think that when it comes to folks that may struggle embracing their wants and needs, or there might be trauma around embracing wants and needs, that strategy most of the time leads to what many folks would classify as resistance. What I have found is more effective is, again, bringing in like almost the playground to it. Meaning I'm not fishing for anything. I'm not even fishing for your wants and needs right now. But I'm going to give you experiences almost as if you're trying on stuff, you're playing with stuff, you're like throwing stuff at the wall, and then we see what sticks. And then we're like, okay, this is what stuck. What do you think about it? What feels good? What do you like? And that's kind of the guiding piece for me is around wants and needs is, what do you like after we've had an experiential feeling with something? And when you hold it with that, it feels more spacious and less stakes.
Yes.
And then people are able to go, oh, well,
freedom.
I like this and I want that. And they just, then it starts to just like flow out of the person.
Yeah. I think what you're really pointing to here, that's right on, right on, is that because this stuff feels so high stakes so much of the time, answering the question itself becomes extremely fraught.
Yeah.
It becomes very difficult to answer. Well, what do I want from this life? Oh, holy shit, that's a big question. I'm going to need to meditate on it for 3 days and then descend from the mountaintop with my like little clipboard of answers, right? I can't just give that off the dome. When you approach it through the lens of play and fun and enjoyment and inquiry, then I think that it really kind of changes the tone on the whole thing.
Because then it's about what feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you like?
A much simpler question. What feels good? Yeah,
what feels good? What do you like? Is that a pleasant sensation you want to be in more? How does that make you feel? Do you like it? Do you want to play with it more? Are you drawn to it? Are you curious about it? Well, then it's either a want or a need. And the difference is, can you live without it? If you can live without it, it's a want. If you can't live without it, it's a need.
Well, as always. This ran longer than I expected it to.
I'm so sorry.
We talked about different things that I was thinking of. Never apologize. It was incredible. They're always the best. Elizabeth, thanks so much for doing this with me today. I've really enjoyed it.
And because I need to know, for like, did I answer the question?
Yeah, okay. I think you killed it.
Okay,
I think you totally killed it. I mean, look, if you are watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment. Did Elizabeth answer the question? You can who's to say? If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you can leave a rating and a positive review saying yes, Elizabeth did. answer the question, whatever it is. I think you're great at this, babe. And I think that one of the reasons that you're great at it is because you are really thinking about not just the specific people that you're working with at any given moment, but taking that as a kind of avatar for a kind of person who has maybe not been so well served by traditional content inside of this space, and you're really including them when you answer questions. I think that's really lovely.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.